writes, I'm originally from Kingston, Jamaica, and in my family it was never okay to call an adult by their first name. Close family friends were called aunt or uncle, and other adults, not as close, were just Mr. and Mrs. This is still true today, as the children of my close friends now in their 20s still call me aunt, and I still call my mother's friends aunt and uncle. And then she goes on, my daughter, who was born in the USA and lived here all her life, was at first a little confused. When we visited Jamaica, she heard so many adults being called aunt and uncle, she didn't understand how come she had so many relatives when she thought I had just 2 siblings.
That's good. That's awesome.
So it actually sounds like people who don't use aunt or auntie or aunt or auntie, it sounds like we're in the minority.
Well, maybe, yeah. Certainly in the Anglo culture, it's far less common to use auntie or auntie as a term of respect, right?
Yeah, for somebody who's not related to you. I find that fascinating.
You can see this, by the way, in the television show Hawaii Five-0, the new version. They do actually call the older Asian relatives or older Asian friends uncle or auntie as a term of respect.
Oh,
so it's
they?
funny, yeah. So you can see it pop up here and there authentically in pop culture as well. By the way, we haven't talked at all about aunt and aunt as pronunciations. And it turns out that aunt is common throughout most of the country, but aunt is far more common in the Northeast, but there are pockets here and there where aunt is, and usually in the larger metropolitan areas where aunt is going to be heard, but aunt is by far and away the main pronunciation. I changed mine, by the way.
You changed what?
I grew up as an aunt sayer, but I started saying aunt when I lived in New York City for a long time, yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. And I'm conscious of it now.
Yeah.
It feels a little, now I'm kind of defaulting back to aunts now that I'm in California.
Is that right? Okay, but you don't use aunt as a gesture of respect to a woman you're not related to,
I don't,
right?
No.
Yeah, I didn't grow up that way either, but I'm just...
white American, and for the most part, that's typical for a white American.
Right, and I'm just fascinated. Once again, it underscores the paucity of kinship terms.
If you have more comments about auntie and auntie, by all means give us a call, 877-929-9673, or send everything in email to words@waywardradio.org.
Hi, you have a way with words.
Hi, my name is Beth. I'm calling from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Hey, Beth.
And I was just wondering about the term supper versus dinner and maybe the origin of it.
You're from Las Vegas?
I'm actually from Wyoming, but I'm going to school in Vegas right now.
What do they do in Wyoming? What's dinner and what's supper?
Well, why I'm asking actually is because my mom always refers to supper as the last meal of the day and dinner as whatever the largest meal of the day is. She's actually from South Dakota, but we miscommunicate all the time because she'll invite me over for dinner when she actually needs lunch.
Oh, really?
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so you show up at the house
really late?
Or, well, she'll send me a text saying dinner is in a half an hour, and it'll be 11 in the morning.
Oh!
Yeah, but that's interesting that you are culturally different than your mother on these words.
Well, yeah, I mean, so she and her whole side of the family say it that way, but, I mean, everyone else I've ever met doesn't use it that way, so...
There was a bunch of data gathered by Bert Vox, who's a dialect guy, a great linguist, good fellow, years ago, in the 90s, was it? And it was recently remapped by Joshua Katz at North Carolina State University. One of the dialect questions was, what's the difference between dinner and supper? And so if you look at this map, on the west coast, this whole big region is, they don't use the term supper, and it kind of graduates to the east, you know. The further east you get, the less sure they are about whether or not they use the word supper. Wyoming is kind of a mishmash. It does say there's no distinction and they have the same meaning, at least the map that this map. And then there's this whole big red part of the country where there's no distinction and they mean the same thing. And then there's these little pockets of like yellow where supper is an evening meal and dinner is eaten early. And that sounds like what your mother uses.
Yeah, is South Dakota one of those places?
Yes, it is. South Dakota, North Dakota, and Nebraska. That's where she's from?
Yep.
There we go. We've explained it.
Yeah.
And it's really, it's like, one interesting thing is like, you'll get pockets of interesting things happen, like around Northern Virginia, Maryland, DC, Delaware, in that region, they don't use the term supper, but all around them, people think there's no distinction between supper and dinner. In my vocabulary from Missouri, I'm firmly in that there's no distinction. Dinner and supper are interchangeable.
In my experience, dinner is always something more formal. it's an evening meal,
Yeah.
but it's more formal. Supper is something you have around the table with your family. Dinner is maybe you invite friends over to dinner, you go out to dinner.
I know
But
that.
I would never say dinner for lunch.
I know that dinner.
Yeah.
But I also know the lunch dinner. I know both dinners.
You know the lunch
I have
dinner?
them both, yeah. But they're both very clear to me from context only. But standing alone as individual words, it's impossible to say which one is meant.
Well, exactly. Do you go out to supper?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
I've never heard that. Or maybe.
Or do you go out to dinner?
You go out to dinner, Beth?
Yeah.
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 Well, you know what, Beth? I am sure that we're going to hear from fellow listeners about this with lots of opinions about what is dinner and what is supper.
I just want to say to all of you who are about to email and tweet and call, just know that there's a lot of varied experience in this country. Just accept it.
Beth, thanks for calling.
The email box is about
Thank
to
you for
explode.
having me.
Yes.
All right, take care.
All right, bye-bye.
If you got an
Bye.
opinion on the difference between dinner and supper, what time of day, what kind of meal, formal or informal, whether or not they're the same or different, give us a call, 877-929-9673. Email us the long opinion to words@waywardradio.org or hit us up on Twitter at WAYWORD.
Another riddle for you. How do you make the number 1 disappear?
How do you make it? Put the L in front of it so it's below.
Oh, that's pretty good. I was thinking of another letter.
What? In for none.
Oh, that's good too. That wasn't even the letter I was thinking of. This is good. Okay, you get one more. This is almost a hat trick. One more letter to make one go away. The past tense.
Gone. Put a G.
Gone.
Gone. Oh, then
Well
it's
done,
gone. One
Grant.
becomes gone. One is gone.
One is gone. I'm impressed. That was very good. I wonder if there are any other. No.
Well, I just have to run through the alphabet.
Yeah. Phone us. PHONE. Phone us. 877-929-9673.
Hello, you have a way with words.
Hi, my name is John Zarenia, and I'm calling from Central Tennessee, your big Southport National Rec area.
Oh, yeah, I've been there. I love that place.
Hi, John.
Beautiful.
What's up?
Well, I had a question about language, and this time it's about an unofficial map of how we call animals different things in the United States. Specifically, I grew up in Wisconsin. I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and up there we call woodchucks. They're marmots. Marmot's a woodchuck. And I discovered when I moved to the south, somewhere around Tennessee, and it's not in Kentucky, but somewhere in Tennessee when you go south, people start calling woodchucks whistle pigs, and I've never heard of a whistle pig. So how did that happen? And is there an unofficial map? Is there a whistle pig line, just like there's a Mason-Dixon line?
You know what, John? There is. There is a map.
It's a big line.
Yes. There is a map in the Dictionary of American Regional English, which has a whole long entry for whistle pig, meaning that kind of animal, a groundhog,
Marmot.
marmot, woodchuck, and
Does it
lots
sound
of
like a made-up word, though?
Marmot?
Yeah, marmot. Rather than like the official name of an animal.
marmot. You know, it goes back to Latin, I think, all the way back to Latin for mountain mouse.
So this map.
Yeah,
is-
this map is astonishing.
So am I reading this correctly? It looks like it's all along the Appalachian Mountains.
Totally. And
So
it is.
Eastern Tennessee and Eastern Kentucky.
Yeah, it is in Eastern Kentucky for sure. And yeah, it just maps out perfectly.
A little bit of Pennsylvania, though.
Yep.
And what's this Idaho thing? Right? In Idaho, it looks like it's a different animal. Prairie dogs or ground
Oh,
squirrels.
yeah. These animals go by lots of different names. But I love the name whistle pig. Have you ever heard one of these, John?
I've seen them. I've never heard them whistle.
Do
I've
they
never heard them
whistle?
only like a pig. I don't know where it comes from.
Oh, yeah. They do whistle. In fact, they sound like birds. They actually sound like birds tweeting. Yep. I'm sure you can go on YouTube and listen to
Yeah,
whistle
and play it
pigs.
on your phone.
Yeah.
Go out into the woods.
There you
play it on
go.
your phone and see what happens.
Yeah. But whistle pig, which is such an odd name for it's a tiny rodent, right?
Well, right. Pig, maybe not always about the porker, right?
Right. Well, yeah, it falls into that line of animals that are named for what they look like. Like the word
Size.
porpoise comes from Latin porcus piscis, which means pig fish.
Big fish.
You know, it's a pig. Groundhog. I mean, it's not really a hog, right? Yeah. So.
John, thank you so much for your call. call, sir.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate answering my question.
Yeah, sure. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Hey, bye.
We talk about it all the time on the show, but
Yes.
the DARE Dictionary, the
Oh.
Dictionary of American Regional English, has a bunch of maps like these. It's at daredictionary.com. Your library may have it. This is a great work of lexicography.
It is.
This is American history and language for
It's a nightstand reading for me, actually. I love it. Whistle pig.
Call us about your animal questions, 877-929-9673. Email words at waywardradio.org, or tell us on Twitter at wayward.
Did you see on our Facebook page that Michelle Harris Abramson posted a photo of something that she saw at the grocery store? And it's a sign at her local market that says, "We now offer boxes to bag your groceries."
You know, yeah, it's funny.
Isn't that
Right.
nice?
So you don't have to bag your grocery with bags.
Right. You bag your groceries with boxes. Or you box your grocery, whatever.
Yeah, you box your groceries. So is this one of those localities where they banned the plastic bag, maybe?
Ah, good question. She's in Burlington, Massachusetts. I don't know, but isn't that funny? I mean, I kept looking at that photo, thinking to myself,
Trying to figure it out.
what's wrong with this sign?
I
We
like
offer
it, though.
boxes to bag your groceries.
So you can bag something without using a bag.
Exactly.
877-929-9673. Email words at waywardradio.org. Hello, you have a way with words.
Hi,
Hi, who's this?
this is Peggy from Katy, Texas.
Well, Peggy, what is going
Yeah,
on?
what's up?
Not much. I'm sitting here actually at a beauty parlor getting my hair done.
In a beauty parlor.
Nice. What's the linguistic gossip in the beauty parlor today?
It's a secret. We can't tell.
No!
Oh.
Sorry, I'll close my ears. You can tell Martha.
Yeah, tell me.
What's up?
The word I had wanted to ask you guys about, though, I'm from New Orleans originally.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when we were young, my mother used to say to quit pirating through her purse or pirating through a china closet that my grandmother had. And, I thought that made perfect sense, and, we used it all the time. And then when I got married and had children, I was telling my kids one day to quit pirating through my purse, and my husband stopped and said, "What are you telling them?" And I told them, and he said, "There's no such word as pirating." What does that mean? It means rifling through things and taking out stuff that doesn't belong to you. And he was not from the South, but he said he had never heard of it before. So when I went back to New Orleans, I asked all my cousins, and they were like, "Well, of course there's a word. Pirating. It means being like a pirate."
Sure. And Peggy, how are you spelling it?
Well, I spell it Piroute, but I don't really know. Maybe it's Pirooot, like a
Yes.
pig rooting.
Yes.
But
Like a
don't
pig
really know.
rooting, did you say?
Like a pig rooting something. A pig roots for mushrooms or whatever they do.
Uh-huh. Would you believe that it's probably a variation of pirouette?
A pirouette.
Yeah, the original definition of pirate was to whirl around or to wander aimlessly or gad about, that kind of thing. And you can see how that would transition over time into sort of snooping around, rooting around. And it's also probably influenced by the word root,
Okay.
like to
Well,
root
we
around. What's that?
In New Orleans, we're having pirates. We were in love with pirates in New Orleans, especially Jean Lafitte. So we just thought it had to do with what a pirate does.
Oh, that's funny.
Taking things that he shouldn't and that things don't belong to him.
Uh-huh.
So that's our connotation of the word. But
Yeah, interesting.
Anyway.
No, you're right. The people I've talked to who use that word are almost all from New Orleans, but apparently it's all over the South.
oh, that's funny.
Yeah. I think Anne Rice used it in one of her novels.
Oh, that would make sense.
Yeah.
My roots. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, cool. Thanks for
Anyway.
your call, Peggy.
Well, thank you. I love the show.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward to listening to you.
All right.
Great.
Take
Happy
care now.
power eating.
Thanks. Talk to you later. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
A related word or similar meaning is rootle, which I love. R-O-O-T-L-E.
Yes.
To grub around, to nose around like an animal after food. The underbrush or something. Rootle around.
Can you roodle around in the fridge then?
Poke about. Yeah, poke about in the fridge looking for the leftovers that are expired.
That's what I do. I stand in front of the fridge with a spoon, and that's dinner. 877-929-9673. probably like. It's house gravity.
House gravity, your tendency to stay at home.
Yes, it's the force that stops you from leaving. You know, I was planning to go to the event, but house gravity was too powerful.
Escape gravity.
Right, it's a variation of bed gravity.
Or
Which happens
5,
especially-
Scotty, I can't leave the house.
I like that, house gravity. I also like the term escape velocity, you know, which is what a rocket needs to
Oh, yeah.
leave the atmosphere. I often talk about not having the escape velocity to leave the
Yeah,
house.
I totally get that. I waver between the two, like desperately wanting to leave the house and never
Yeah.
wanting to leave the house. 877-929-9673. Hit us up on Twitter at WAYWORD. Do you want more Away with Words? Listen to years of past episodes at waywardradio.org or find the shows in any podcast app or on iTunes.
The toll-free line is always open, so leave a message for us at 877-929-9673.
We love to get your emails at words@waywardradio.org, or you can hit us up on Twitter at WAYWORD and look for us on Facebook.
This program would not be possible without you. Grant and I are out to change the way we listen to each other and the way we think about language. And you're making it happen.
Thanks also to senior producer Stephanie Levine and director and editor Tim Felton in San Diego. In New York, we thank production wizard James Ramsey, quiz guy John Chinesky, and that master of keeping it real, Paul Brewis at Argo Studios.
Away with Words is an independent production of Wayward Inc.
From the Recording Arts Center at Studio West in San Diego, I'm Grant Barrett.
And I'm Martha Barnett.
Bye-bye.
So long.
The episode you're listening to cost thousands of dollars to produce. Want to hear more like it? Go to waywardradio.org/donate and make a contribution today.
Hello and thank you for downloading Witness on the BBC World Service with me, Farhana Haider. And today I'm taking you back 20 years to when Sri Lanka was in the midst of its long and brutal civil war against the Tamil Tiger rebels. Some listeners might find parts of the program disturbing. It's the dead of night in late October 1995 in the remote southeastern Sinhalese village of Kotiagala, hundreds of kilometres from the civil war's front line in the northeast of the country.
It was just past midnight. I was sleeping in my house. I suddenly woke up and saw that the front door was wide open.
EHM Rahma, at home with his wife and young children, thought at first that he was dreaming, but in fact it was the start of an attack by Tamil Tigers on his village. He quickly realised that the family were in great danger.
There were some people at the door. They demanded that we should come out of the house. I pleaded with them not to harm us. They shouted again, demanding us to come out. I switched on the torch. While I was flashing the light on them, I started screaming, "Tigers are here to kill us!" I saw that one of them had a machete in his hand. The other one had a gun aimed at us. I realized what was about to happen. I had a machete within reach. I took the machete and started shouting, "The tigers are here to kill us." My wife and child were hiding inside the room. I started wielding the machete at them. I felt that I hit something with the machete. Then suddenly they fled. We ran out of the house and hid in the jungle. While we were hiding, I could hear the distant screams of my father. When we returned home in the morning, we saw the bodies of my father, my brother, and 5 others who were hacked to them.
In a conflict that had already gone on for over a decade and claimed tens of thousands of lives, this was yet another brutal attack on civilians, fought between the Sri Lankan government and Tamil rebels.
Military sources in Sri Lanka say Tamil Tiger fighters have attacked 3 villages in the east of the country, killing 64 people. One report quotes a witness as saying that 16 men, women and children in one village alone were killed with machetes and swords. From Colombo, Amal Jayasin reports.
The Sri Lankan military says gunmen stormed 3 remote villages in eastern Sri Lanka and began systematically slaughtering their victims. Most of them were still asleep when gunmen attacked them inside their home. Sri Lankan military say that Tamil Tiger guerrillas carried out the pre-dawn attack and hacked to death a total of 64 men, women and children from the majority Sinhalese community.
Amal Jayasin worked as bureau chief for the AFP news agency and was one of the few journalists in Sri Lanka reporting for foreign news agencies. He got first reports of the attacks in the southeast at his office in the capital, Colombo.
We started getting figures like, maybe it's about 7 people killed, and then it kept on increasing as they discovered more bodies scattered within the village.
The numbers reported dead soon began climbing, with claims and counterclaims common. Amal was keen to try and get someone on the ground. He sent a photographer on a government-organised trip to the area. The pictures he would bring were gruesome. Some listeners might find this description disturbing.
I think the initial thing was that we may not be able to publish some of these pictures. They are too graphic. So we had to sort of be very careful in selecting some of these pictures. There were some children who had been hacked to death. The attackers had been very careful not to use any guns, because using guns would have alerted the neighboring villages. So the victims had all been butchered. So it was particularly to see young children hacked to death in that manner was pretty gruesome. One of the problems we had covering the conflict was that access to information was not that easy. We had basically 2 sources of information. One was the Sri Lankan military and the other was the Tamil Tigers. Of course, a lot of people would argue and say that the Tamil Tigers were much more efficient in disseminating information. So they had a well-oiled machine which actually operated from London. So for us, the big challenge was how do you sort of balance what these 2 sources tell you.
The conflict that had arisen out of a long-standing ethnic tension between the majority Sinhalese and the Tamil minority had mainly been fought in the northeast of the country, an area where the Tamils wanted an independent homeland. Attacks in the southeast of the country were very unusual.
This particular village is very much in the Sinhalese heartland of the country. So to that extent it was a very rare incident, and we knew that Tamil Tigers had infiltrated a nearby wildlife sanctuary. They were operating in that area, but this was one of the first instances where they went fairly deep south and targeted the Sinhalese village.
By 1995, when the village attacks took place, the Sri Lankan military were on an offensive deep in the Tamil heartland to the north, trying to seize control of their main city of Jaffna. Amal believes that this is why the rebels targeted civilians in the southeast.
The military was confined to a few camps in the vast peninsula, and they had just launched this big drive to retake Jaffna from the Tamil Tigers, who had actually controlled the region as a separate state for about 5 years. So this attack takes place in the backdrop of a major military campaign in the northern part of the country at the time.
And why do you think Pottigala was chosen? I mean, what was significant about that area?
I think geographically, if you look at it, it's far removed from the battlefield, and it's in the deep south. The attackers probably had easier access because they could come to the wildlife sanctuaries in the neighboring areas, and this particular village was fairly isolated. It's a Sinhalese village. There's a lot of symbolism there. You pick a Sinhalese village and the victims are Sinhalese. So there would be pressure on the government to either stop the military campaign in the north or go easy or get into some kind of process of negotiations with the Tigers.
And did it have an impact, would you say, on the civil war? What kind of an impact did it have?
Of course it did. You could argue that the military campaign was pretty much moving very, very slowly. Perhaps if not for this kind of massacres, maybe the military campaign would have been over much sooner.
The conflict in Sri Lanka, in fact, went on another 14 years, by which time, according to the United Nations, an estimated 80 to 100,000 people had been killed by both sides, many of them civilians, like the villagers in Kotiagala. The fighting eventually ended when the army captured the last areas controlled by the Tamils. In the final months of the war, many thousands of Tamil civilians are thought to have been killed by government shelling. There was no political settlement or negotiated peace treaty.
6 years on, there has been a lot of talk about reconciliation, and not only reconciliation, I think probably the more important thing is the accountability, but I'm not very sure whether it has been addressed properly yet.
Do you think the memories of the civil war still haunts you?
I think yes, a lot of people still don't know what happened to their loved ones, and it's on both sides of the Atlantic, on the Tamil side as well as on the Sinhalese side. There are lots of thousands of soldiers who are still missing out. Somebody's combating for conscripts. There are children who are forcibly recruited by the Tamil Tigers. So lots of families still don't know, and they are waiting for answers. Without the answers, it's difficult to imagine people getting on with their lives without any sort of reconciliation or accountability.
There has been no official investigation into the killing of civilians in Kotiagala. The villagers eventually returned. Marjai Singer is still working as bureau chief for the AFP News Agency in Colombo. That's it for this edition of Witness. For details of our complete range of downloads and our terms of use, go to bbcworldservice.com/podcast.